Yeah, post schools at a lot.
She went.
I don't know how to. I have. Somehow I don't.
Yeah.
I use it.
It looks good. Everybody join here.
No. No. I'm letting them do their thing.
I think we'll figure it out.
That should be fine.
Really. Yeah. The old give not mine, so ransom money and government so. And on council, you've already.
Yeah, I'll join you right now.
And then if.
No, I'm going next year. Gonna go for a month.
You can.
Oh, no, wait. Last July, yeah.
Please join.
It was, but I.
Oh, I see, you're gonna join. Oh.
Everybody join the new one.
No, I had one here. He's only 12. And 4 of them. My daughter-
Well, I mean, what we did was we created
They've all migrated to Australia from America.
Yeah.
My daughter went to CSU, my son went to CSU.
Then.
My son used to say, you know, what CSU and CU did down in Congress? Everybody wanted to see you.
But I think we want.
You said you worked at the Aboriginals. You find a lot of the things you learned that are applicable to all local communities? Or is the culture play? They all local indigenous communities. Yes. In general, people want to know what's going on, they want to be involved in decisions. You know, they want to benefit.
It might be not. But even so, like, we can't. It's like, you won't see the chat. Yeah.
And I didn't bring you to feel. Living on.
You have done more than the
I said, I had about a year of despair. Where I thought, I don't know. What's going on.
Okay, let's see, did we get it to work?
Good year.
We did, but yes, we're making it work.
I loved it.
So let's gonna direct people.
But was it laughing at?
One thing that I'll just.
Humor's a great indicator, you know, whether you can get it or not.
Technological, like, activities.
Once learned that hard way, I gave a
So,
lecture in India.
Slider.
Didn't realize there was such a.
So I'm hopeful that it works. Okay, we've seen the result in part of it, if not all good. Okay. Okay, so already before we get started, this is a rare talk. You will be using your phones. You will be using your phones. I will encourage phone use. And it'll be my test to see if you're entertained enough not to be spacing out on your phone. So just know it's okay if your phones are allowed to be out. Anyway, we'll get started in a couple minutes.
Yeah, we'll get started in a minute or two.
Oh, that's not, it was incredible.
Oh,
I'm like, that's not bad.
So what you're finding there.
You were on that chair about herself. No, she was tired. She was there. She was like emeritus. She was like person emeritus on a board of 30 people.
No, boy, no, it's not people. Well, that's where what we do.
They're just gonna have
But you
a
didn't go to
shout.
school there.
I think we'll
I
do that.
did my PhD at the University of Queensland. Excellent.
Yeah.
I know you
Good
lecture.
finder. Okay,
Yeah, so far, no.
Yeah.
but as long as we're recording, we record, now we can.
Yep.
Also that jump.
So you'll give directions.
Awesome. Ah.
Sharon's part of. Got it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All day, Soren and that.
Mm. Sorry, I freaked out.
No, I freaked out.
It's fun to get back.
It is.
Yeah. I do one lecture here every year in February.
Load up.
Even though I was saying-
Yeah, that works.
I just. That's not bad.
People get, yes, people get stuff.
But sometimes it'll like slowly. Wow.
All should follow you when you talk.
Yes.
Some people are like.
Really good.
We just met.
Yeah, seriously. One of the neighbors.
Undergraduate students here and some OR research, so we got other departments lured in by.
Great, great.
Fine. Okay, you're full, you're good.
Yeah, we're full.
I would have preferred here,
Sorry. Although, did you sign up? I did sign up so you can go crash the reception.
Oh, I did.
Yeah. So
Gotta go.
that's- it's all part of the plan.
I gotta get back to the mountains.
Where do you live?
About 30 miles. Where? Bailey. Down to it.
Go ahead.
All right, is everyone fed?
Everyone get your pizza and get your stomachs full or filling. Good. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to our mining department seminar. I see lots of students and we have also lots of guests, which is exciting. Thank you all for coming from, we have lots of mining expertise in the room here, kind of weighted heavy on this side.
Hey,
so-
I've been on this diet.
No, I just mean, we've got a lot of expertise in the room, so that's really exciting. I'm Nicole, I'm a professor in the mining engineering department. You probably all know at least who I am. And I am here to introduce our wonderful guest speaker today, Allison Koppel. And Allison's been on campus all day. She came to my class this morning, which was a treat. Some of you were in there. And she's been here. We had lunch with some students and now, here we are. So I'm gonna read her bio and introduce her and then I'll let her take it away. So Allison has over 2 decades of international experience. She has an MBA and a master's in development economics from the University of Côte d'Azur in France. She has held communities, environmental and sustainability leadership positions at the site, regional and global levels at BHP, Teck, Antamina, Anglo American, Numa, and AES, which is a big renewables company. She speaks 4 languages, English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese, and I think she's dabbled in many other languages.
I tried.
And she currently lives in Washington DC with her husband and 2 daughters, but she was relocated to DC from Colorado where she lived for several years. So we are happy to have her back and thank you all for coming and let's give her a warm welcome.
Okay, hello to people online. So first, hello to people online. Don't worry, you will be included in today's discussion. Hello to everyone in the room. Even those who saw me this morning, you'll know I'm someone who likes to walk a lot around, but I'm trying to be cognizant that the people, oh yeah, you do see me on the screen. Okay, well, people online, you will see me at weird angles and you'll just kind of have to live with that. So before we get started, even in a formal talk, I like to always get to know who I'm talking with a little bit. So there are certain people in this room and those who we've met today at various stages of the day who I know well. But just that everyone get to know each other. Show of hands, who is a mining engineer or studying to be a mining engineer? Okay, so if you can see about a little bit more than a third of the room. And on the Zoom, if you can put your Zoom hand up, that will be fun. We can get to know any mining engineers on the Zoom. Okay, I don't see anyone. We'll just pretend like you're paying attention. Okay. who is an engineer but not a mining engineer, or studying to be an engineer, not a mining engineer? Okay, who is not at all engineer? Okay, all right, this is always good to know who my audience is, who I'm catering to. Just a quick show of hands, who would call Colorado, when I say, where are you from, you would say Colorado? Okay, who would say, in the US, but outside of Colorado? Okay, and what about outside the US? Hey, this is such a, you raise your hand like every single time.
in all the countries.
It's always such an interesting construct. Where are you from? My oldest daughter Gabby was born in Peru. My husband's from Ecuador. I'm from the US. And then we moved to Chile. And so someone would always ask, where are you from? And she'd always look at me with this big eyes and confused face of, which of those answers do I give? Like that question was just always very confusing to her. Anyway, so why are we here today? Most of you, and I'm saying most because I know certainly some of you have actually been doing this work longer than I have. But most of you are not the social performance person. We're going to talk about what that means. Most of you either have a career or going to have a career that is not primarily in charge of building relationships on behalf of the company with the communities who live around the site. But actually, before we get further into it, check one more assumption or one more question. How many of you want to work in the mining industry or work in the mining industry? Okay, not everyone. What about, other than those people, what about energy or any other industry that impacts land? Okay, so most, and I'm gonna go on the assumption for this talk about industries like mining, and I also worked in energy that take up land, and therefore by taking up land, you are interfacing with people. So we're gonna just build that as a premise. This isn't a consumer retail brand, this isn't a tech brand, this is a physical industry that we're talking about. And if there is a premise that building something, having something physical on land, you want to build good relationships with the people who are living around the land, because and I'm going with the premise that you all understand that if we do not, how do we advance this slide? Okay. Because if we do not.
Move that.
Oh, okay. Well, now I actually do need to
Yeah,
touch
we'll
the
move it.
board.
There's a little line.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, sorry.
This guy?
Oh, there we go. Because I'm gonna go with the premise that you've seen what happens to projects. The projects want to advance. I was just listening to about 5 minutes of a symposium that's happening at the Payne Institute, and the speaker was saying that mega projects, what we want them to be is built on time and on budget, and what they are not being is being built on time and on budget, and largely that is due to images like this. On one side, you have images in the street. A lot of times this is associated with, there's community opposition. People physically go in the street with signs. But especially in a US context and a number of other countries, a lot of times it just looks like that. Big public hearings, or it could look like a closed court hearing with a lot of litigation. But the result is the same. The result is that the average, and we were just debating if this is true, I knew that this, Jordy's doing some research to test the assumptions behind this, but the average lead time was almost 18 years from mine started in 2020 to 2023. 18 years to build a mine. And some of that's because of permitting, but a lot of it is because you have to build relationships with people who care about this mine going forward or feel that they are going to be impacted by this mine. So we're going to go with the premise that this happens and that this work is important. This is not a debate if social acceptance is a relevant concept for mining or if it's important or not. So like I said, get out your phones and. Right. All right, phone, we're gonna see if this works. Please download. Oh, you're kidding me. Okay, Well, we're gonna go to Plan B. This worked on my own computer and then it didn't, never mind, put the phones away. We're doing an old school presentation. We're just gonna talk. Cause I didn't have it all set up on the computer. All right, then this is just, could be either hand raised or me cold calling. But so we're going with the premise that we need this relationship, a positive relationship, a relationship built on trust with the people living around this site. What builds trust with the community?
Communicating with them.
Communicating with them, that's good. What else makes a community want this mining project to go forward?
Letting them know that we're going to improve something in their area.
So you're gonna improve something in their area, okay? Anything else? Why would I want to mine in my backyard?
Oh, make money.
Make money, that's good. How, hold on, but from the community, why would I want to mine in my backyard? What does that mean?
I have the community make money from it as well.
So maybe the community will have some sort of economic benefit from it.
Yeah, showing that, they are committed and they're not gonna back out, they're giving some sort of guarantee that they will be building that mine and maintaining it.
I think actually there's a couple interesting words you said, that they're committed in general, that they do what they say they're gonna do, and then broadly that they are gonna go forward on that. What else? We're communicating, look, I'm building a mine, I'm telling you about it. Great, and don't worry, you're gonna get some money out of it. Don't worry, I'm gonna definitely build this mine. So and your schools will be great. Is that all it takes?
Yeah.
Yes? That's great. I'll make sure I invest in his backyard. That's all it takes. Anything else?
Consultation.
All right, I'm gonna go to the.
Don't worry.
How it looks,
What do you mean?
like if it's gonna be ugly, I guess.
Oh, well, they may actually take into account that it changes how you see things, because usually they're quite remote, beautiful places, mines.
You wanna build trust on micro level for.
Oh, you just took my class this morning. We're gonna pause it. I should have gone back to him. Hold your thought, at least you thought of it. We're gonna go into what he just said. But look, it takes a number of things.
You ready this time?
Oh, we have a speaker on the screen. What was you gonna say? You can unmute yourself. Do we have volume? Or if you wanna type it in the meantime, sorry while we're getting the volume, and thanks for saying. All right.
Someone want to say something online?
All right, you may have to resort to shouting online, and I apologize for that. But what we're gonna do today is talk about the various things that builds trust with communities. Now, still all of this may say, but I'm gonna be the mining engineer. Why do I really care? That's someone else's department, someone else's job to go out and do the communicating and making sure everyone benefits from it. You know, what role is that? We're gonna learn today that there are a number of other pieces involved in this formula. Often these pieces are not taught because none of you were social performance majors, really, except for the University of Queensland in Australia, and I think that might be the only real university that has it from start to finish. Pieces of it.
Yeah, British Columbia.
University of British
BC.
Columbia.
BC.
And are the only places where you can actually get a degree and a major and study in this field. Other than that, especially if you're more on the senior end of the industry and experience, we've learned on the job, we figured it together, we've pieced together to create this professional discipline. But often people don't understand how to build community trust in a systematic way. And what I want to teach you today is that it's everybody's job. It's like safety. Safety isn't just the safety manager's job, it's everybody's job. But often in this, and then we'll see the chat, but often in this field, I find that since there's so little practice and discipline and knowledge about what the job entails, that the other colleagues don't know even what questions to ask or how to bring in the colleagues who are specialized in this field. So, and I'm gonna pick on some of you, but just for the sake of that, we created a context together of information, if my only job to get the mine, to build trust with the communities for the mine is to make sure that they make money, then I'm only gonna call you into the meeting when we get to that point, when we're gonna talk to the communities, like, I designed the mine to be like this, and I don't need to talk to this colleague who talks to the community until it's the point when we need to discuss some sort of economic benefit. There's no other reason for us to involve each other in each other's work. I do the mine engineering, you do the talking and negotiating of community benefits. That's how the work happens, but there's more than that. And hopefully by the end of this hour, you'll figure out that there is a lot of work that we need to be doing together and how to do that work. And who is on the Zoom? Who had a chat question? Let's see. I think telling them that the mine will definitely be built will erode trust. Okay, Callum, it would be better to ask for permission and a conditional promise. I like this Callum, that you said, ask for permission. So hold that thought. We're gonna get into that. That was a very good input. So here's kind of the answer. And how do I get this away? There you go. It actually takes a lot of time to build social acceptance. And you'll see that I use the term social acceptance. There's a more common term that's social license. That was developed in the late 1990s, and it was very useful in the discourse because it helps people understand that there's something beyond the legal permitting license to operate this mine. There's a sense of community, needs to be on board with this. I personally don't like the word license because it sounds that it's one and done, kind of like your permit, boop, got this license. Whereas this mine's gonna be probably developed, we just learned over the next 18 years, it's gonna be a mining project. And then hopefully operating for the next 50 years. And then it's gotta go into closure. For the next 100 years, we're about to be married together. So instead of saying license, I like to use the word acceptance because it denotes a bit more of this permanence and this long-term relationship that we need to build. Now, I'm gonna move through quickly. This morning in the class, we got to build up to the punchline a bit, but I'm gonna move to the punchline already. And this is based on research, practice, and feel free to challenge it. But this concept of trust with the community, it's actually in second order about the economic benefits. It's in second order about the tangible benefits that the community is going to receive. In the first order, it's very much to Callum's input and to your input. It's about building this relationship. Now, and this is where we're going to dive in on how we can work together as the mining and other engineers and the social person, is I trust this company if I trust the decisions you are making. And I understand the decisions you are making if I understand the criteria upon which you are making these decisions. Why are you benefiting this person who lives near the mine, but I also think I live near the mine? Why am I not being benefited by this project or by this economic opportunity? I got to come to the meeting, but this person wasn't invited to the meeting. Why? And I trust the company if there's clear criteria to deciding who is part of this community, who is worthy of being spoken to and built a relationship with, and that you can transparently explain how you came to that decision. Way too often is, and I had this conversation, I was just in this mining conference in Beaver Creek 2 weeks ago, where it's a number of mining investors and exploration companies looking for investment. And a lot of the smaller companies don't have departments or a person dedicated or someone trained in this work to build community relationships. So I spoke to the CEO of this small company. He's like, oh yeah, I got good relationships because I talked to this person and I talked to this person. And I asked him, I said, how do you decide who to talk to? Why don't you talk to the person in this town versus this town? And he's like, oh yeah, but because I like this, and it was all out of the gut feeling, the assumption, just because he felt like talking to this person. And That is not an example of clear criteria. So we're gonna talk through a little bit of that structure of what that looks like. Also, what is important is that all of you have to be able to have a consistent experience with the company. Way too often, especially smaller companies, and even surprisingly some big ones, they don't have a structure around this work, and we're gonna talk about what does that structure look like. And so you come up to me, and I'm the company representative, and guess what? Everyone working at the company is a company representative. You are all ambassadors of the company. You get cornered in the supermarket and say you're rude to the person. Well, that's going to be, it doesn't matter if everyone else was nice, your experience with the company was not consistent. If your neighbor got a contract with the company and you did not, and there was no real process, there was no real opportunity to even know that they were hiring a contractor, well, you don't feel like it was consistently equitable for you to have an opportunity. That's when trust is eroded. But the contrary, which surprisingly does not cost a lot. A lot of times I talk to different managers, leaders, CEOs of companies, and they're, oh, yeah, we'll call you when we get money because, you know, this stuff's expensive. So for everything that we've gone through, it's not expensive. It's just about doing the work. The same amount of work that you plan geology, the same amount of work that you plan to do your engineering, this is also the work. So we're gonna see what that work looks like. So when you, hopefully all the project directors, CEOs, executives, investors, when you're planning the work, you know what the right work that needs to be planned. And then the other key bullet is feeling heard. The person on the phone, on the Zoom that said that to ask for permission, to has to hear what I care about, not just telling me there's gonna be a mine and telling me I'm gonna benefit from it, but making me feel like you care about me and you care about this community that you're going to be a part of. And we're gonna do an exercise in a slide or two about how hard it is to feel heard. And it's very much on a second level than what classically companies do and think that is the only thing that is gonna build trust with companies. Oh, we're just gonna give them jobs. You know, we give them jobs, so, and we got our permits, and that's okay, because the permit said that we are avoiding or minimizing negative impacts. You know, we got our environmental permits, we studied the wetlands, that's good, we made a plan, that's okay, we're not gonna disrupt the wetlands. And don't worry, we're gonna give them jobs and fix their schools. Well, that's great, but if I knocked on your company door, if I sent you a letter that you didn't respond to, if I talked to you in the supermarket and you know, were just rude to me and didn't hear my concern or talked over me, the rest, I'll happily take your money. I'll happily take whatever you're offering, but I don't trust you and I still don't want you in my backyard. So everything that we talked to on the first part actually hardly costs any money at all. It's just about knowing what the work is. Here's another question. Sorry, Bill, I didn't download the Slido, so we're doing this old school and just talking. So I've talked to you a lot about this work and I've alluded to this. I kind of loosely say the community professional, because this discipline is still in formation. You'll hear a lot of words around the discipline. I mean, the titles that I've had, I've been head of social responsibility. Now Newmont calls it head of social performance. I've been the communities and social development manager, you know, the community relations manager. There's a lot of the community engagement, head of impact. I mean, I've had personally a lot of titles that pretty much all was the same variation of the work. So the industry doesn't really have just one name for the work. But so in general, what do community professionals at a site do? So just imagine, have any of you been to a mine site? Okay, raise your hand, and online, do I see any hands? Okay, kind of like I saw them. Okay, you've been to a mine site, or a project or exploration site, some sort of job site. All right, raise your hand again, I need to know who we are. Okay, most of you, all right. So, have any of you engaged at this site or been aware at this site that there was a person who's in charge of talking with the people? okay? Usually there might be. So imagining we're talking and just we're taking, for true that this person exists in companies, what does this person do? What is their main job? What does their day look like? This one, I may go over to this corner of the room. What would be a typical day for a community professional at a site?
Well, one, it would have to be, whether or not you have one professional or a team of professionals, depends on the size of the mine and the cultural, social, and political complexity around you. So there might be an anthropologist on the team that's out doing work to understand how the mine might change cultural traditions. There might be someone on the team who does a lot of work around economic development, looking for opportunities to collaborate with local government or with communities. There might be a communications person that could be, but maybe you're working in a place where everybody just listens to the radio. So they might be putting radio shows together, or maybe a team of people that have to walk up into the highlands and a lot of their time is spent working with the mining engineers, going, hey, that place where you want to build that thing, 150 people live there. And working with the mining engineers and the project people to help them figure out how to, that they need to understand the social landscape and land tenure landscape, and then how do they integrate that into their project to make sure that.
See, I'm
That
glad I asked you. This is Sharon Flynn. So Sharon has been a longtime practitioner and leader in this space at a number of companies. And, you know, often I ask this question with a room that doesn't have people who have more expertise, a lot more expertise in the room, but sometimes I ask this question and I, you know, obviously, what the community's professionals do, and what we're gonna
What
learn.
people would typically say is, oh, they go and talk to people and have tea and try to convince everyone that we're good.
They go and have tea. I mean, I basically hear what I used to hear from people. It's like, isn't your job just to donate soccer balls?
Yeah.
Or
Yes,
isn't your
yes.
job, you just go around and talk to all the old ladies? Like, you know, and you either go around and just talk to people, again, and that is something not good to do. Or you just are there to do the ribbon cutting or the donation. And what we're gonna see is wrapped up what Sharon was explaining, is there is a lot more pieces to this puzzle of what not just the one professional does, but as the site becomes more complex, what the team of people have to do, and that there is actual specialization within this team of what they have to do. But I saw his hand.
No, I wanted to ask, so what she described is the very same thing, right? Where it will give you a listening ear, where you have like an entrance and a passage to maybe like the stakeholder. What do you do in hostile?
A very same community versus a hostile, actually, can you hold that thought? We're gonna talk exactly about that, about a practice to do when you come in and people are visibly mad at you or, you know, rage at you and whatnot. But with this slide, what I want to convey is that, oh, sorry, it's Shebnam. Hi. Well, how do you, well,
The community's burning the mine vehicles.
Yeah,
Men are wearing red armbands and yelling at you.
yeah.
so just to jump into that, then we'll go back to this. I mean, if someone is, and this is a lot of generalization, let me see, I'll tell a story. I told a story this morning about when I had 70 angry community members in Peru and how I got out of that situation. I'll tell a story about Suriname. Who here knows where Suriname is? Well, you all been there. Okay, Suriname is a tiny little country on top of Brazil. On top of Brazil, there's 3 little countries. Suriname is the middle one. Okay, and Newmont has a mine there. So, I was down there and I was setting up the social team. And long story short, there's a protest in the middle of the road. The local community members blocked the road and they were very angry, and they put a little fire to kind of more just as them demonstrating their anger and blocked with logs so that none of the trucks go, and people were kind of shouting, and it was a big commotion. And, you know, what do we do? What do we do? And, you know, I'm like, first of all, what are they saying? Hear them out, find out, just listen. And it's amazing how just going back to basics and honoring that this person is mad about something, and your role right then is not to solve some issue or go out and prove that you're right and they're wrong and get into a fight. Your role is actually just to understand really where they're coming from. And so another example is a more recent a company, I'll just call it that. Someone called me from a site, and I was in the corporate office, and a community was at the operation. There was a big protest. This woman had never dealt with anything like it and didn't know what to do. And you know, it goes back to basics of understanding where they're coming from, recognizing this may have nothing to do with you. It may have everything to do with you, and that you need to treat the people, you just called them hostile, you know, already with judgment on what they're feeling and what they're doing. And that if we speak to them and listen to them and seek permission to say, hey, I hear you, this is what I'm hearing. Let's see how to sit down and collaborate together to build the process together so that we can collectively come to a solution, and then drive the conversation, not to the solution right there, but the process that's going to get us to the solution. It's amazing what works out, and you actually might work out with a much better relationship afterwards. But anyway, we can have a whole class around crisis management, but absolutely what we're trying to do here is to avoid that situation from happening. All right, so how do we really get there on the social acceptance journey? And I like, you know, I pull a lot from the safety practice, because safety often talks about a safety journey. It's not just one day you wake up and, oh, now we're safe. We're always working on this journey. So first, you actually have to go to work every day committed to wanting to create trust with stakeholders. You actually have to go to work every day caring that you're going to do the best job possible for you and the best job possible for this company, and recognizing that we all want this project built on time and on schedule, or on time and on budget. And to do that, it also takes the trust of the people who are around this project. You have to go to work every day committed personally to wanting that to happen. But just like safety, I go to work personally committed that I want to go home every day. And I trust that you also go to work every day committed to also wanting to be safe every day. But there is a world of difference of I want to be safe every day. And if the pilot just woke up every day and said, I want to be safe every day, and that there's no other procedures, practice, strategies on planes to making sure the plane is safe every day, well, that's a lot of faith in that pilot, because it takes a lot more than just, and I called the talk, more than just being nice to have good community relations. It also takes what we've been talking elements of a management system, and a system of strategy, plans, and procedures to actually make this wanting to have good trust, to actually having good trust. Because we want to go back to that initial slide around we need systems in place so that when communities interact with the mine, they have this consistent, fair, transparent experience with the company. But often, and as we were talking about, this community work, the strategy, plans, and procedures is actually not well understood. And if other key colleagues, such as the mining engineers, understand the work, they can invite the community professionals in, because there is a role for them, as Sharon is describing. There's a whole department at times. I think, how big was your team at Rio Tinto? Sorry, did I get on?
70 people.
70 people reported to her at Rio Tinto's project in Granja in Peru. That was the community's team. So, but often they can invite the community professionals in, understand what questions to ask, and support the work. Because as we were saying before, every single person you chose to work at this company, you chose to be an ambassador of the company at all times. And you may say, but yeah, when I'm in the supermarket or in the bar or wherever, hanging out rudely with my friends in the street at 3 a.m, it's not my problem that I'm keeping all the neighbors up, I'm on my own time. Well, that is the commitment that you chose to be part of this company at all times, especially when you're at a location. It's harder even when you're at a location that's close to your home. And it's also hard when you're at a location away from your home. You're always an ambassador of the company. And so what is this system? But before we even get here, what I do want you to do, so that people who are in the class in the morning, you have a chance to practice, and I'll do another role. We gotta feel what this work looks like, because I've done this training types of things for years, and the next slide is more PowerPoint and more structure and whatnot. I know engineers often like that. You gotta feel this work. So there was someone online that said you had to ask. There was someone here who said you gotta communicate. I'll actually tell you, the top skill to building trust is listening. Mark Cutifani, who is the CEO of Anglo American for a number of years, he used to always say, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Use it in that proportion. So it is not actually always very easy to listen. So what I want you to do is pair up. And then first pair up, everyone pair up, everyone's playing. If there's someone who's left out, raise your hand, because I'm gonna pull out. Professor. Is someone, Nicole, do you wanna, is there one odd person? Okay, get into pairs. Now identify within this pair, one person is gonna be the community person and one person is gonna be the company person. So decide that right now. Okay, who are my community members? Who are the community members? Community members? Community members, which one of you is your community members? All right, and then who are my company representatives? Okay, so community members, this is the situation. This is a project that has a drill rig right next to your house. You hear this thing. Has anyone ever heard a drill rig? Is it quiet or loud? Okay, so you hear this drill rig. It's near your house. There's a bunch of trucks that go up in front of your house every day. You live on a rural dirt road. Has anyone ever driven a truck across a rural dirt road? Is there dust or no dust? Usually dust. The people, in this particular company, they're not particularly friendly. They say a lot of 4-letter words. They say it loudly. And when the drill's not going, they got loud music going on all the time. And guess what? They're all smokers. And they throw the cigarettes everywhere. So these are your neighbors that just moved in. And guess what? The leader of the neighbors, you're at the county fair. It's loud because it's about to get really loud in here. So it's a real exercise. And you see him. I gotta talk to you. And you are going to complain for a solid minute to this company's representative. Now, the company representative, you will not interrupt, you will not take notes, because you're at the county fair, it's not like you're sitting.
Exercise where the community person complains for a
Oh,
solid.
sorry, we need to do this on Zoom. Sorry, thank you for speaking up. I'm usually much more inclusive than this. I am so sorry. All right, we're gonna try to pair you guys up in Zoom. Is that easy to do?
Figure it out here.
And if not, I am so sorry if we're not able to, and take in practice she's gonna do breakout rooms. Now, on the Zoom, people quickly figure out.
So maybe.
We've got to be the community person, you complain to them for a solid minute.
Yeah,
about
okay. Person will be
everything,
the.
and the other person has to say it back.
Who's gonna be the community person, who's gonna be the company, and who's the observer?
Yeah, normally you write that shit down.
Back to our exercise. So company person, as she's figuring out the breakouts. So community person, you're here thinking about your complaint for 1 minute, it's long. Company person says these magic words. Let me make sure I understood you correctly. Let me make sure, let's all say this together. Let me make sure I understood you correctly. You're going to repeat back, not paraphrase. Repeat back everything that you heard. And then you're gonna say, did I hear you correctly? And the community person will agree or not, and then we'll see how it goes. Okay, we got the exercise? Doug looks confused.
Yeah, it's.
Are you the community person or the company person?
Thinking about it.
What are you gonna, you're gonna? Okay,
So Zoom
let me,
friends,
you're
I'm
gonna
gonna
have to
put
listen.
you all in, and divide you into 2 breakout rooms. So
Okay, so I'm gonna look at the clock. Community people, get ready to complain. When I say go. On your mark, get set, go. Complaint's over. What are the magic words, company people? Now repeat that.
That's doing on and on.
No, let's do it. Let me see if I can understand you correctly.
that's how you have to.
All right, time. On Zoom, I hope that you're able to do it. Let's see. Okay, we're gonna close the room. Time, stop complaining. All right, now, the company person who just heard this person explain and did this feel natural? How did it feel different from what may usually happen when someone comes complaining at you?
You have to listen harder.
What did that mean?
You have to integrate it because you're talking, you're gonna echo everything that they said, and you have to think really hard about what they said so you can remember it, so you can say it.
Okay,
I don't usually do that.
okay, thank you for being honest, Shebna.
So I like being this person, so whenever somebody says something, I like communicate usually with my mom, and then you know what complaining about the kids. Since I have 2 sons, and this I'm having difficulty, I would imagine my son.
So that's an interesting tip, is especially when someone is talking a lot, you have to train your brain on what are ways that you can have little cues, either visual or, okay, we talked about apples and cigarettes and schools or something that's gonna guide you along. Someone else want to comment about how the experience felt from the company person perspective? Yeah.
It was hard not to be reductive or like try and paraphrase what they were saying, like, you know.
Jordy, can you talk more loudly?
Yeah, sorry, I was saying it's hard to not be reductive and not to paraphrase what they were saying, like to actually hear all the components of their complaint, instead of saying like, oh, you don't like the noise, like they had specific points they're trying to make.
Okay, now, community person, I mean, obviously this is a fake exercise, but what did it feel like that this person actually listened to your entire complaint? Is that usually how it is when you're complaining loudly to someone? How is it usually?
They counteract to you, or they just kind of just blow it off.
Okay, and where does it go from there? If I start talking and you're just gonna counteract me, does it solve the problem usually?
No.
No, okay, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, or what he said, also sometimes they're just like, yeah, okay.
But actually, to what Priscilla was saying, active listening is not easy. It is not honestly what we usually do. Usually, you stop listening on second two and you're already thinking of your rebuttal. Now, back to the question of hostile communities. I said we would go back there. And I told this story this morning, but you all this morning, I told you we're gonna repeat some stuff, so just act like, ooh, you know, this is really great. So there's this moment when I was working in Peru, and I was going to this rural community, and I thought it was just gonna be a meeting of a handful of people to discuss this cattle grazing project we were gonna do. So that's what I was expecting, and what I got was a room full of what might be called hostile community members waiting for my visit. And there was a call to order to the meeting, and a gentleman stood up. And it felt to me like 10 minutes that he was complaining about the mine, about his life, about a number of things. And it was a situation where, you know, energy builds. You know, one person's angry, you're right, that company, and everyone's about it. If I contributed back to it, well, it would just go there. So that's when training actually helps. And the whole time saying, just do what I was taught by Tony Kelly, somebody who we worked both with, and who taught me this, a professor from the University of Queensland. And I just said, all I have to do in this moment is listen to what he's saying and repeat it back to him. And this accomplished several things. One, how do you feel when someone's yelling at you for a solid minute? Does it feel great? They don't want to explain what happens physically to their heart when somebody is yelling at you. Has anyone been yelled at in the past week and want to explain how you felt? How did you feel?
Not great.
Not great. Is your head clear?
No.
No. Does your heart race and you're breathing and you're mad? You don't think clearly when you're completely taken over by emotion. Being able to be what's called emotionally intelligent and have emotional control is a really key skill in this work. So this is a trick to do that, because all I gotta do is listen to what you're saying. And they're expecting you just to throw back, and I repeated back. So what you just said is, you know, the mines, they spilled this, or they had dust, and they did this, and your daughter applied for a job, and your cow died, and it's the fault, you said it was fault line, and this and that, and da. And I tried to just say it back. I was calm. And the whole energy of the room just went like this. They were just amazed that I was listening, you know, and it allowed me to, then I said, did I hear you correctly? And instead of having a ping pong game of I insult you, you insult me, we'll go back, it's kind of like you threw me the ball and I caught it and I threw it back to you. And it's only in that moment where he said, he was just like dumbfounded. He's like, yeah, you heard me correctly. And then I asked for permission. I said, well, how can we move forward on this? Would you mind if I wrote these on the board and that we plan together when we're going to talk about all these topics? And then he's like, oh, just get on with the meeting. It's fine. We'll talk about the cows. And then we did go back and we resolved the issue. So there's actual practice and technique in the moment. And then and realizing that the key to it is having this practice and technique to control your emotion. And then here's a radical thing, actually make sure you understood correctly. How many times have you been in an argument where you feel like they didn't understand you? You're not getting me. Well, it's because they stopped listening in second number two. imagine your next argument, hopefully you're not in one soon, but your next argument, try this. Just look at the person, repeat that, because did you agree with the person? Did you agree that they threw the cigarettes and ran with the dust and whatever? Was there any agreement or taking place here? No. It was honoring that what was important to you right now, I heard you. That's it. But that is a step that we often forget. So if anything from you talk that you learned this, and you will get very far in this work. But I do this because it grounds us in what is this work? What is the core? So grounding us to the beginning, when I said that we're going to get back to that concept of feeling heard, this is the work of feeling heard. Now, come on, screen. Why is this not working? So now we're going to demystify this word. Yeah, what's up?
So you said that, you know, every worker in a company is a representative for that company in these communities. Not every worker is going to have the experience of getting trained to be familiar with how to actively listen. One thing that you said was that you're just at, a county fair, the company representative can't take notes on it. Everyone has their phone with them these days. What about taking notes on like a phone and recording it? So even if they can't necessarily interpret the community complaint, then it can at least record it and pass it along to someone who can.
I mean, so two parts to your question. One is not everyone's trained. I mean, I've worked with, when I was at BHP and we were working at the University of Queensland, one thing that we did is we launched this work into a practice and we tried to train every senior executive and manager at BHP at the time. Is because we realized that the success of the company is making sure the mining engineers, the head of finance, the head of everything understands the core essence of this work. So every worker should be trained in a basic, you're trained in safety, you're trained in basics of other practice at work. You should also be trained when you all are the leaders of the companies. Remember, you also, it's your duty to make sure everyone actually is trained. But just to the recording and the phone, I mean, this is where someone's emotionally charged, treat it in that way, cut down the energy so that they are in a space where they are ready to dialogue with you. When they're yelling and you're yelling, no one's talking to a place where we're gonna solve anything. That's where you say, okay, I heard you. Do you mind now, this is really important. Do you mind if I take out my phone? I just don't want to miss it. Do you mind if I take some notes or we can summarize this in a recording so that I can, and hopefully you've been trained at a minimal level so that I can give this to the community professional and they can lodge it as a complaint and someone will get back to you formally. And so at least if you're minimally trained to be able to handle a situation like that, then look, instead of you yelling back, dismissing the person and potentially have escalated something unnecessarily, you've just created an opportunity to build a relationship, even though you're the mining engineer. All right, so demystifying the work. We've kind of gotten to pieces of the work, what it feels like, what elements are of this work. So what is this work? So we all have the same goal. We want to obtain, and this is where I don't like the word social license, is because it kind of makes it feel like you've obtained your licenses. I got my government license and my social license check. The real hard work after you've obtained it is maintain it. And that is an ongoing goal. That's why I like the word journey. And we do this, and we've just experienced different pieces of this already in this afternoon. We do this by managing the relationship, and we're going to go into a little bit more detail, the pieces of that work. We do this on a little bit what Sharon was saying, because we've taken the effort to understand how my work is going to be impacting you. Oh, I'm gonna be putting dust on their house every day. I've taken an effort to recognize that that is going to happen. And that you living next to my drill site, if you get mad enough, you can, burn my drill rig. And that all of a sudden is a risk to me. So we've done some explicit work to understand what are the risks to my project stemming from the people around the site, and how is my project going to impact them? Benefits, I was a little short in the beginning about benefits. You're about to be a new neighbor for 100 years. This community has to thrive with you. This community has to be excited that you are there every day. You are making money. I am going to expect that there is some sort of benefit for me. So benefits are indeed a part of it, but purposely, I just said that in the third place. But I will say, and to me, it really is the middle square. I'd say a large part, to me, the square actually should probably be even bigger. Maybe not most, but a large part of the work of the community's professional is actually internal. It's actually being that person outside and understanding, hey, we are, throwing dust on this person's house. Hey, everyone is really rude till 3 in the morning in the one street of this quiet town. Hey, we are actually, disturbing the people here, and then come back and say, why don't we create a procedure where we do the work slightly differently, that we do a procedure so there's not dust that gets thrown up from the roads, that we, make sure that people aren't throwing trash at the site and that it lands into the neighbor's yard, that we actually plan a little differently our work. So maybe we aren't drilling holes on an area that's sacred to the people who live around this site. Why don't we change the way that we design things or operate things? You as mining engineers won't know that innately unless you're collaborating with the communities professional who was empowered to go and explicitly do this work. And a lot of that work, and so therefore, is internal. Now, this system can be adapted according to the project and the size of the operation. Obviously, a huge project in a very complex area, you have a team of 70 people. At a small exploration site where there's 3 people and they're all wearing multiple hats, this all doesn't mean what I'm going to show you, that we need all different people to do all the jobs. This is just all the jobs that, all the roles and the functions that need to be thought through to be done at the site. So you could be the project director, the mining engineer, and the communities person. You could have only 3 people at a site, but to come back and tell me, oh, that's not my job is only to drill the holes, or my job is only to design the plan. Well, that's not gonna get this project going forward. And if there's only 3, 5, 10 people on your team and no one's doing this work, then you're missing a huge part of what the project is. So I'm gonna flash a lot of text. Usually I try not so much text, but we saw that again. I basically fill in the blocks. So what does that mean? Sorry, Kelly, your comment is gonna go. Relationship management. Now, each of these pieces in the class this morning, we got to go through some of these pieces of the puzzle, and it's already 5 o'clock. So I'm just going to show them to you and have you trust that each of these pieces that we're going to flash before your eyes are explicit exercises that need to take place to be able to also understand the people who are around your project site. You need to understand, are they farmers? Are they fishers? Are they, who are they? What's their economic level? What's their education level? What's something about their history? You need to understand this community in some way. You can't just go in and say, I don't see any community. I'm just going to put this drill rig up here on this mountain and no one's going to see me. I've been being called lately by companies who, well, then they got seen. And guess what? They were seeing you. You just didn't see them because you didn't explicitly go out to find out about them. Then we talked about in the class this morning, well, how do you decide where the line is? There's only 24 hours a day and we're only 3 people on this team. I can't talk to all 20,000 people in this surrounding community. So how do I decide who is within this social area of influence? Who are my stakeholders? Who's the most influential in this community and who am I impacting the most? How do I gonna talk to them? Am I gonna train my team to do this exercise that we just did? So I'm really listening to them. What are the specific concerns if they're Native Americans, if they're Indigenous people? Those are different pieces of the puzzle. Then filling in the rest of it. Risk and impact management. We talk a lot about risk management in other areas of mining. And there's a number of other pieces of it that we need to talk about in a specific structured way to be able to understand how we are impacting the communities and what does that mean in terms of our project. This internal alignment piece, and this is where you and I are going to work together because we need clear roles and responsibilities to your question of, well, wait a second, I'm not the communities person, so am I trained and at what point do I give it off to somebody else? Well, you need to have that conversation within the company. And then like what Sharon's saying, the communities person is the one primarily tasked to do the explicit work that hears what's going on, that understands the impact. Well, most of that work is then making sure that the project decisions, if the pit is gonna be this shape or this shape, if we're gonna take up this land or this land, you need to collaborate together so this community information is part of that decision. And then you also have to track and report and be able to have that transparent, consistent, clear criteria so that people trust what you're doing. And then, of course, there is around the benefits, but we need to be thoughtful and strategic. You need to be able to say that this investment made this community thrive. If we're just every once in a while donating soccer balls and doing a ribbon cutting and taking a photo of it, that's not going to make this 50-year marriage last. There needs to be a real thoughtful plan about how this billion-dollar investment makes this area be the best area to live in this country. So, what can mining engineers and other key colleagues do better to build social acceptance? Now, I respect your time and I know we're at the end, so I'm just going to give you the answer. But for a second, just think about when you came in here and you're like, okay, I heard about the social stuff. I'm kind of familiar with protests. I hear that this stuff is important. We talked about a lot in the last hour. Think about what you could do. What is your role? What is important to take back and do potentially differently? And what I offer here is one, behave as an ambassador. And I keep using this example. I can't tell you how many, usually mines and projects are in small towns around the world, small communities. And let me tell you, when, 100, 1,000, 2,000, honestly, usually single men come in with new disposable income into one of these places. Unfortunately, it's a quite typical behavior. They're loud, they like to drink alcohol, and they disrupt things. But if you come in and say, I'm going to behave as an ambassador, and then you proactively have training on what that might mean and how I can behave and why that's so important to the job that I actually want to keep. Because if this project stops, we're all out of a job. That might change things. So behave all the time as you're an ambassador. It's your job to understand the impacts of your work on the communities. If the mine plan looks like this, the mine plan looks like this. If you need to access that mine through this road, if you need electricity to the mine and you need to create new transmission lines to get there, if they're gonna be 100 trucks a day on the road to carry down materials or carry up supplies, guess what? That is part of your job, and that should factor in ultimately how you decide to do your mine plans. But if you're just like, oh no, my job is just to draw the little pictures and someone else to do that work, well, guess what? You're gonna be either, a lot of times, I've just seen too many times where that's when the project is stopped. That's when the money is wasted. That's when you're doing the plan again, because you realize that, oh, we're right next to an indigenous cemetery? No one told me that. Well, you didn't go look for that information. I was in Chile once and we were engaging, the whole thing of, oh, we can't go talk to the communities, they're gonna go want things. And, they're gonna have all these expectations. I'm like, we could just introduce ourselves and talk about, I always say, what you know, I know who I am, I know what my company is. What you don't know, I don't know when we're gonna build a mine, I don't know what this is gonna look like. How you're gonna know when you're, what you don't know, but we're gonna do these studies and we're going to seek to know this. And then you just ask, what can I learn about this place and about you? Then remember, 2 ears, 1 mouth, and you listen. And I was in Chile and I finally convinced the team, we gotta go out and build relationships. And they meet this local mayor. And she says, oh, well, have you done a paleontology study? And they look, they're like, well, what do you mean? No, they're like, well, this is full of dinosaur remains, because guess what? That community member knows their community. They know that local knowledge of that land. You don't know, you're not from there. Or even if you are just from there, it doesn't mean you know every single thing about it. So she said, and you know, in Chile, there's like 3 registered paleontologists to do the study, and guess what? They're busy. You could have a multi-year wait to get your paleontology study done. And that all of a sudden became the new critical path for this project, was be able, because you're never going to be able to move it forward unless you do this paleontology study. And guess what? You can't, you know, you have to, you may not be able to do the mine plan and do the tailings, it was exactly where, no, the tailings facility is where the indigenous cemetery was, they found out. And so we, long story short, they'd already spent tens of millions of dollars doing some plans that they ended up having to do again. But the good thing is, they went back like, thank you, we would have never found that out. And we were about to spend a whole bunch more, is because this knowledge, this impact of the work is your job. Maybe you're not the person out in the field getting that knowledge, but it is your job to ask for it. So therefore, you need to, ensure that social expertise is in the room and integrate their perspective in the agenda. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a meeting, like, okay, we're gonna talk about the project. We're gonna talk about geology for 4 hours. And it's like, oh, what did you want to say, social person? And it's like, well, who defined that this was the agenda for this project? You know, we're talking about the project. So why don't we build an agenda together that reflects everything that's critical for this project? And that's gonna potentially not be 4 hours of geology. It might be 1 hour of geology, and then you can have a breakout session and 1 hour of understanding, I don't know, our neighbors and the people next to the drill rig. You know, so build the agendas to make sure the right expertise is in the room. And then resource your projects from the beginning. Do not wait till you discover that the community did discover you were there to call somebody like me. Is resource your projects from the beginning to consider the appropriate social management system. Everything that I showed in the previous slide should be there before the drill ever arrives. You should have thought through every bullet point that I showed before the drill arrives, before you actually truly impact the land. You should already know who your neighbors are. You should know what the impacts could be, because guess what? Maybe your plan to bring the drill rig might be different. But the typical way is you brought it, it didn't work out, and so then you have to redesign things, then you lost the trust, now you gotta recoup the trust. Well, that's why it takes 18 years to build the project, because you're too busy doing that. But if you get the right person in the room and the right system in place, you actually realize that understanding the context in which the project is situated is part of demonstrating the business case. Very often we're like, oh, we're just gonna figure out what the metal is first and more or less what the mining process is gonna be at a cost to that. And then we'll call you when we gotta do those environmental studies or go convince the community it's a good idea. But let's figure out first what the business case is. How do you know that with only part of the information? All this other information is part of determining if there is an indigenous cemetery there, if there is this very sensitive environmental area there, if there is a place where if you just sat down and talked about it in the beginning, you should co-create a solution together. But since you rammed it through and just told them that you're gonna give them jobs and I'm communicating what's going on and I got my permit, so I'm good to go. That's not exactly you understanding the project. So that's what I got for you guys today. This has been a very fun group. Thank you guys on the phone and Zoom for being so patient with us. But before we go, any last questions or comments? Yeah.
So if you're talking to someone who's like angry with, you know, your company, you know, like the whole 1 minute of content complaining thing. And then you repeat it back to them and you say, did I hear you right? And then they say yes, then what do you say to them after that?
That's class 2. Okay, hold on. Oh, I forgot my biggest announcement. Okay, so you saw my name. I'm gonna do shameless plug because it has been the most fun project that I've ever done in my life. And I've been having a lot of fun in my career around the world. So here's my name. Find me on LinkedIn because today I launched a podcast. I wonder how I share. Nicole, can I share my screen on? Oh, this is a lot of improvising.
Yeah.
All right, we're just gonna trust that I did. So we're gonna go back and share. Here, right now, if you're not my friend on LinkedIn. Here, if you're not my friend on LinkedIn, go follow me on LinkedIn. And you have the link. It's called Planet People Mining, Voices at the Crossroads of Mining, Community and Sustainability. And I talked to a world of professionals. You may recognize one of the voices in episode 3, about this work. This work is really, I've had this amazing, unique career, and I've been in this ecosystem of amazing professionals like Sharon, like Chris, and a number of others who have chosen not just to work in this amazing niche world of mining, but within mining, a discipline that we didn't, you know, there's no real set program for, but we all found each other here and have done some fun things in the field and have learned a lot. So in the past few months that I decided to transition from about 20 years of a corporate career into my own practice, I've reconnected with this network and I realized I've been out of mining for a year and I missed it honestly a lot. I've missed the people, I've missed my network, and reconnecting with my network, I realized I'm not hearing these stories in podcasts. And so I said, what happens if I created my own podcast? And it's amazing when you put a thought out in the world and the world conspires to help you. These people, particularly in the room, have conspired to help me, which I'm very grateful. And things like this consulting practice has started to kick off. Things like this podcast has started to happen. So if you like what we've been talking about today, you want to hear more and different people talking about it, follow me on Spotify. Si habla en español, también hay Planet People Mining en español. I'm doing 2 channels. One is entirely in English, one is entirely in Spanish. Some people have the pleasure of listening to both of them. And I'd love to hear from you, to hear what you think. So shameless plug there. Please follow. Thank you.
And thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah.